Hey, I'm Jeremy. Welcome to the HV show. I have Samarth here, and we're going to talk about history of Samarth and some of the education background and things that have happened over the last couple of years. So, welcome. So let's begin from kind of the past. What's your background?
Right. So just to give context to the viewers, right now we are in the United States, and I'm a doctoral researcher here. We're in the same school. We study aerospace engineering. So coming to the background, like I come from India, especially precisely from a city called Vadodara, which is in a state called Gujarat, which I know is difficult to pronounce.
I won't try.
So yeah, that's my background. My parents are retired high school teachers, and I have done my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, master's in aerospace propulsion technology, and here I am doing my PhD in combustion dynamics. Yep.
Nice. All right. So for the rest of the podcast, let's talk kind of more about the academic side, and the entrepreneurial side, of course. So I want to talk about your book that you have coming out next year. You've announced the title a couple of days ago. It's just awesome. Before that, I want to start talking about the startup that you had and where that is today.
Right. So I started on 12th December 2020, and I founded the company. It was called Indian Space Society before we rebranded it a couple of days ago. So, and it was all about education. And you can, of course, know that coming from the same background, because my parents are retired high school teachers. So I would have that in my blood, and I wanted to teach. And more than that, I also had this thing in my mind where the difficulties that I have faced while searching for a university to do my master's or looking for a PhD opportunity in the States, which was very difficult. And the only people who know the process are already in the States, right? And the ones in India don't know the process real well. And the people in the States are not willing to talk to you because you are just nobody, and why would they invest their time in you? So I think all those difficulties that I faced, I still want people to not go through the same and save the time of their lives. So that was the core of the startup, Indian Space Society. But we ended up making a lot of online courses, which was a great fun, and a very successful research fellowship where I just taught them whatever I knew about research papers and publishing them. So that is like the Indian Space Society in a nutshell, where we had different events, educational events, and of course the basic courses and workshops.
Now, the startup was operated from until January of last year. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then it's just kind of suddenly went away. What happened there?
So we started in December 2020, and we ran until January 2022. So last I remember, before halting the activities of the startup, we were doing this research fellowship, and everything was going smoothly. We had about 13 teams. Every team had their own research papers published at the end of the day. What happened was that when the fellowship was coming to an end, it was 27th January, 3 a.m. in the morning, where my father passed away. Sorry. Thank you. Due to a sudden cardiac arrest. So I was in a different city back then. So I just stopped everything there, packed my bags, and moved back to my home with my mom and my brother. And after that, because India has a very functional, systematic family system, it is very difficult to then come back and start everything again. It was all like I have responsibilities along with my brother of the household and all the admin stuff, which looks pretty easy, but go in a bank and they will take your entire day to do nothing. So time passed in that, and that is why there was no update on even the social media accounts of the startup. So yeah, I think when I was slowly coming out of it, I got the opportunity to come to the States. And I ended up here, which also took a lot of transitional efforts where I don't know anything about the American culture. So it was quite a transition.
It was.
Yeah.
I remember you here that first week. It was amazing. That was great. How well did that startup work? In the first phase, from the December 2020 to the January 2020.
So I would say, of course, really good. It worked really well. To give you stats, we started on the 7th position in the LinkedIn rating, where LinkedIn automatically takes other companies in the same domain and compares you with those guys. And we ended up being the first after 7 months of the working of the startup. So I felt quite an achievement there. Of course, it wasn't possible without everyone working together, because it was so organic that like-minded people came together and we had this team, and no one really got paid in terms of money, but everyone was so aware of what they are getting because everyone was learning, even me. So we are trying to figure out how to do a webinar. We are also trying to figure out how to invite a PhD candidate from Stanford University who doesn't care about you, right? So we're trying to mail him, we're trying to shoot a LinkedIn message to him, and we are trying to see how that works. And it worked really well at the end of the day, I would say. The courses were really successful. Research fellowships went really well. I think it is the fact that students don't get those opportunities in school or in universities. And that is why our startup worked really well, because it wasn't about money. I still do have this idea that a business is never a full-time job for me. I always have something else to do, and I'll run a business for just my hobby. And I think that was the startup was all about. So I just had that as a hobby, and everyone came together, and we, I think, created a miracle.
Yeah. Community like that is amazing. It really is.
Great.
Explain to me why the rebrand?
Right. So that's the big question, right? Why jump to HyperGalactic Ventures when the Indian Space Society was doing well? So there are quite a few problems that we faced. Because we started as amateurs and we didn't know anything about anything, so I designed the first logo. I designed the colors of it, I designed the name of it, and even the name of the brand, I came up with that. The problem with that is, because it is termed Indian Space Society, it can never have a proprietary ownership. So it is not a community of people, it's a company that we run, and there's a founder and a CEO, and then there's a management team. It's not a community. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So that was one of the reasons. The other reason was because I did design the logo. It was really bad. Not, not in terms of the design per se, but more like it was almost impossible to print it, to merchandise it on things like T-shirts or mugs or diaries. So it was being very difficult there. And on certificates, because we had a logo and then a name under the logo, and then you have the actual name that goes in the certificate. So it was getting messed up there. And maybe like the last reason for rebranding is that we wanted to have a new idea, new look, new representation of a more organized, more ordered structure to the brand. And like the courses we'll do or the fellowships we'll do will be more organized from this time onwards.
Awesome. With rebranding, are there specific goals or objectives that you have in mind that you're wanting to fulfill with that? And, that, for instance, weren't specifically attainable with the old brand?
That's a very good question. Let me think about it. So I would say not really. We still are living on the same basic idea of educating, providing the information and opportunities that you don't get in normal school environment. Sure. That is still the basic idea. But as I said, I really do want it to have a very different but very organized structure, where it's not just about some random dates and we'll post a picture about it and you can enroll, but it will be more organized this time. That's one. I think the other is that because I'm in the States from a couple of months now, I know how the education system works in the States, and I like some aspects of it, which I would really want to implement in like combination with the Indian education system. Okay. So, for example, I would have a different way of taking exams and a different structure of taking exams, and how assignments are looked or seen in India is very different than in the States. So I really do want to change that. So maybe that is the only thing I would think of change when I think of rebranding.
Gotcha. Yeah. Awesome. So the way I see it, this kind of unknown man from India all of a sudden has some kind of overnight success with the Indian Space Society podcast and such. Kind of becomes a little bit famous on the one side of things for teaching, maybe thousands of students. How is it that you see yourself?
That's interesting. So, of course, I also think of it and feel that was an overnight success that I got. But I always have thought this way, that success is not really a gradual graph. It's more like you start here and you just move in a linear way and you shoot up real quick, right? When you're acquiring all those skills, you're getting a degree and you are having all those experiences, and you are going down that route, and then one day you get that opportunity and just it goes up. So I think I cannot deny the fact that I started the company and no one knew me at that time, and then there are 8,000 people who know me after maybe 7 months from the beginning of the startup. So that's fair to say that it felt like an overnight success. But of course, there's a big chunk of my life that went before starting the startup in investing myself and the skills I have acquired. So more like when I was in my bachelor's or when I was in my master's and I was trying to learn from people, do different things, try to see how they publish a paper or, write a review paper in the first place, let alone research paper. So yeah, I think that was that I feel is the definition of my success, especially for the startup. And the problem with the other educational institutions, especially in India, not really a problem, that's not the right word. But the reality is that there are a lot of people who are interested in a lot of things, but of course schools have those limitations on themselves, on the kind of teachers they can appoint or the kind of courses they can teach. So everyone's interested in knowing what's happening in a black hole, but there's no course to do it, Maybe you take astrophysics, but not everyone is fortunate enough to end up in an astrophysics course. So I think that was the reason where the knowledge that I have accumulated over the years just was so helpful to me in pouring it out to the people who were very excited about all the astrophysical phenomena like stars and black holes and dwarf planets and what happens at the end of our solar system. Or more interestingly, what was the general theory of relativity and why is gravity not a force? Everyone has those questions. And I think I should add that to the previous question you asked about the startup, was that every course was 3 hours long per day. I only taught for 1 hour, and then there was Q&A session for 2 hours. And you can understand how and why that worked out well, because if you want to know about a black hole, there's a ton of data out there on the internet. You go to the NASA's website and it's a treasure. There's like a web page and a web page and a web page and a web page. But the problem is, even if you go through those websites or those videos, even personally, when I want to learn about something, I have that one question which I don't know who will answer. Like I have known everything about black hole, but what happens if a person ends up in a black hole? Sure. And I don't know who will answer that for me. And the startup did that for people. Like we would try to answer those questions that no one would answer. If you go on a YouTube video, like it's just a one-way communication. So I think that was the real success reason. I feel that we had a very successful Q&A session every time.
That's very fascinating because I've actually had some interesting responses from the general public just about one question alone, which is there gravity in space? And when I tell people, yes, there's gravity in space everywhere. Now, that might, change based on where you're at and how microgravity and such that is, but it's really fascinating to watch people like their eyes light up and just like, because they just think, oh, I see astronauts floating in the ISS. That must mean there's no gravity, but what is holding the ISS to the Earth? Yeah. Right? So there's a lot of those little things. It's really fascinating.
Their minds getting blown when you're explaining those concepts.
The fact that they're going so fast, that they're literally falling over the curvature of the Earth constantly, and that's what creates.
Right. And if I may add just one more thing to that, is that is the reason I started the company in the first place.
Yep.
And I was having this conversation with a senior in my university, 1 year senior to me, and I was talking to her, and she was from a different field of science, but she ended up asking me something about dark matter or dark energy, and I explained it to her very simply, and that just blown out her mind. And she's like, "Why don't you teach people?" And I'm like, "Okay." And then she went like, "We should have a webinar where you teach." I'm like, "Well, but no one knows me, and why would people spend a minute of their lives listening to me?" And that is why we thought of building a brand which has a value of its own, and people would want to spend some time in it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what is your core approach or your mindset, if you would say, for achieving success?
I'd really start by defining what it means to me. I would not really think of success in terms of money, of course. More like I have this thing where I feel the need of my impact or the impact of my life in this world. So I would really think of it that way. Like, for example, I always think that if Thomas Alva Edison was not born or did not do what he did, it's not about he did and it changed the world, but I see it more from the perspective of what would have happened for the next 1,000 years if he didn't do what he did, right? So it's like no one would have electricity and no technology, I guess. So I think that is how big an impact he has on the humanity. So I really try to think about success in those terms, where if I can, like through startup, if there are people who did the research fellowships and some wanted to go to Canada for their higher education or come to America, but they did not have any research experience, because they did the research in fellowship with me, they do have that one extra line in their resume, which might have helped them to get into that university. And I still get those messages where they literally thank me for their career and the fact that they are in the States or Canada or even in India in a good university. So I think that is what makes me sleep like a baby at nights, where I just think on how big an impact I'm having on people's lives and positively how it changes them. So I think that's my core value.
That's awesome. So now that we have an idea of, the kind of success that you've achieved, can you reflect on the challenges that you've had, that you faced along that time frame, that journey that you've been on, and how did you manage to overcome those?
Oh man, I still remember every day as if it was today. And I started this company, and the next job is how to make Instagram posts. I don't know how to design. And then I'm learning graphic designing. I'm like, okay, I do have graphic designing now, and I'm doing those posts. But now I need reels. How do I make reels? And I don't know how to make video design, content. And then next thing, I'm learning the graphic designing for videos. So I did that. I think the key was to do everything myself so that I knew how to do it, because the people who joined me were as amateurs as me. So if I asked them to do a graphic designing job for me for, let's say, just one Instagram post, I needed to teach them. So it was required from my end to have the skill and then to deliver the same to those guys. So I think I started with that mentality. The next thing I would say was we did record some webinars and we did record some courses, and we don't know how to publish them, and there are errors in recording. And next thing I'm learning professional video editing. The fact is, the point is that if you want to learn video editing, the problem starts a step before that on how to have a software in the first place, because they charge a lot. So is that worth it? Are you going to make that payment? If not, what are the other open source tools that might be helpful? So I think those were the bigger challenges I faced, that I don't know how to record, or I don't know how to edit, and I don't know how to design. And I did overcome by just self-learning, to be honest. I did watch a lot of YouTube tutorials. I did watch a lot of videos on particular people's websites, and did go through other web pages that just walks you through the steps of the process. And I more like a trial and error method. Just try and then see if that works.
Definitely, it definitely is. There's a lot of challenges starting anything up.
And you know about it. You have owned a company.
I did. I owned a company for over a decade.
Wow. We should get this man's interview.
Next one. But yeah, why, being that there's so many challenges, why did you still decide to become an entrepreneur? What motivated you?
I think
what makes Samarth tick?
I get ticked by, I'd say, really, to be honest. Okay, then maybe you should know a thing or two about the state I come from, Gujarat. And of course, you are aware of the fact that there's a value system in every culture. So there's a value system in a major north part of India, where there are people who aspire to be government servants and become the head of the police department of the entire country. And we call it IAS and IPS officers, which is a big deal. It's a very big deal. So I think they have that value system of being able to serve the country. And if you can do that, what kind of life are you living? So you really want to be valuable to your country. Similarly, but contrary, coming to Gujarat, the value system is more about freedom of life. So it's like, what will you do to have that freedom when your kid comes home and tells you that I have a 3-day vacation, or maybe call it a 20-day vacation, and I want to go somewhere? How much freedom do you have to make that decision, right? You can't have that in a 9-to-5 job. So Gujarat is termed as the business state of the country, where everyone does some kind of business, because that's the only way you can just close your shop, go somewhere, and not worry about anything. So I think maybe I have that in my genes somehow. Like, I don't come from a business background. My parents are retired high school teachers. Even my uncles and aunts are always worked around academia. So no one has really a business, I'd say, background. Yeah. But maybe it is just in the air of Gujarat and maybe water. So yeah, that I'll say is one of the reasons that really excites me about having a business, the freedom that I get in my life. And the other is the fact that I can be in control of whatever I do. Like, I would really not want to be just an engineer in a rocket company where I'm an engineer in among other 10,000 engineers. Personally, I would really want to be someone where I can do something and see the impact real soon and very clearly. And I can go back and control the impact for the next time when I hit again. So I think teaching also gives me that thing where I can look at the faces of the kids and be like, hey, are you not understanding that? And they're okay to say no. And I'd say, okay, let's try a different way. And I can see that impact. So maybe that is the reason that keeps me going. Yeah.
Let's take a step back real quick and understand your academic side. So you're a doctoral researcher at the moment. But tell me about your starting school and how that led you to this point right here.
Okay. So let us begin with my elementary school. So I used to go to a convent school in Gujarat. My parents used to work there as high school professors, and I and my brother were also put in the same school, which was kind of interesting that our parents are there teaching high school students.
Couldn't get away with anything.
Exactly. Yeah, I know, right? And and it's not just the parents, but every other professor knows you.
Right.
So like you can do anything in class or outside really. So, but again, school life was great. Because I had that extra, I'd say, benefit of having parents as my teachers, because there are times when I look at my friends and when I used to go to their houses, because their parents are in a different occupation, maybe they own a business or they just are doing finances for a company. If the kid does a physics homework, the parents are not in a capacity to judge if that's correct or not. But luckily my parents were. So they would say, hey, this is wrong. You need to do it again. So I get that extra benefit just because of the fact that I come from a family that has teachers in it. That was the extra that I got. But other than that, like my parents were very strict with me in school intentionally so that everyone gets the message that I do not get any extra attention or care in school. Like everyone's equal. To do that, they would be strict with me, which I felt was unfair at that time. But I enjoyed my school life, and because of all the opportunities that I got, not just because of my parents, but also the fact that my school was very giving in terms of opportunities to the students. Like they'll call scientists, and my father went to the research conferences, which the school paid for, just so that my father can go there and make connections, network with people, and then invite them over to school so that every student gets benefit of listening to a scientist when they are in 8th grade. So I grew up listening to scientists and looking at those presentations of space and space technology. So that led me to a very good academic career, especially in school. And I ended up going into a university to pursue my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. And I ended up pretty good there. Like I ranked first in the last 3 semesters in my university. So that went well. The big issue was to then transition from a mechanical engineering background to an aerospace background in master's. And there are a lot of universities that doesn't allow that. But I found a few that do allow. And I just applied to those universities and I went there. And I ended up getting a gold medal, which I got to know last January. I could not go to receive it, of course. I was here in the States, but they were kind enough to courier it to my home.
Having a blast with us.
Yeah, exactly. So I got the gold medal for ranking first and also for being the best student in the extra co-curricular side of the academia. So I have always been good in the academics, I would say. I don't know why I don't necessarily have a different mindset than most people. Like I used to work and study with my classmates. They would come to my house, I'd go over to their houses and would study together. But maybe I just am lucky enough to have those opportunities and that success. But yeah, that's how. And after master's, immediately I got offered to come to the States and to pursue a PhD. So here I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're glad to have you. What would you attribute to your academic success more than your intellectual abilities per se? Or were there specific factors that played a significant role in your academic success other than intelligence alone?
I'd say yes, but very little. Like, as I said, my parents being teachers, I got that extra benefit at my home. They would know how to teach a student, how to teach a kid. And like in 11th and 12th grade, my mom was my mathematics professor and my class teacher. So she would teach in school. But when other kids were going to a different coaching center, my mom used to teach me at home. And I think maybe that's where a slight difference comes in, where a professor charging you for an hour of lecture versus your mom teaching you because she's pouring everything in you and she knows that this is do or die situation because you're in 12th grade and it decides your future, especially university wise. So my parents did pour out everything into me, and maybe I got that extra from that end. But otherwise, I would say the school played a very important role because I got all those opportunities to go on stage and host a seminar, or we had different competitions like extempore and impromptu and elocution competition. See, I can't even remember it. And my mom would write the entire elocution paragraph for me, like an essay that I have to say on the city where I lived in, the hood, and we have to go up on the stage. And I'm in like 4th grade. Can you imagine that? And there are 500 students sitting in front of me. I'm like, my legs are shivering. I don't know what to do. But maybe that was the extra that I got, that my parents forced me to participate in everything because they were ready to prepare me. And I did not have any excuse because they did all the hard work and heavy lifting. And they're like, we are giving it to you. Just prepare it and go on the stage to say it. I'm like, well, I have no other option, so I better go there.
And then, just finally, let's talk real quick about the upcoming book. I know you announced the name of it already. Again, can you give us the title of it and why did you decide to write it? Excuse me. And then what other factors played a significant role in that rolling out?
Right. So not very many people know that I used to write blogs and I have my own website, but I never promoted it. I just thought writing was fun. And I still do. Like, I don't care if anyone reads or not. I think writing is really a process that I enjoy. Of course, when I'm writing a book, I would really want the readers or the people to become readers of the book, because it is not just about fun anymore. It's also, I'm concerned about how to write it. I'm concerned about how to portray this in a way that is most easiest way to understand for the people. So that's the line that I draw between blogs and my book. The title is Human Genius, and the tagline is Transcending Mediocrity again. The entire book is about how you have the tools and you have the opportunities in front of you. You just need to execute. But there are people who don't know how to execute, and I totally understand and relate to those guys because I was in their shoes a couple years ago, and I have journeyed through that time in my life. So I know a few things which I would like to share through the book, and that's what the book is all about. Like, it's not, I don't guarantee success, or it's not a typical self-help book, but it's more like, hey, I have learned a thing or two in life. It might help you or it might not, but here it is. So I think that's the book is all about. The other aspect of the book is because it is self-help, but it has glimpses of my own life. So it has, for example, if I'm talking about relationships, then it has a chunk of my relationship with my parents and my sibling. So that is also, there's an emotional side to the book. And then there is a practical guide that can help you. So think of it as more like a very practical guide, but also a spiritual one. And not in terms of a religious perspective, but more like how you can find peace and how you can just be peaceful and calm in life. And not just to find peace, but more like that helps you in life. Because when your left and right brain are balanced, only then you make decisions which are not influenced by the other. So you really do want that in life where you take a decision and not regret it later. So that's what the book is all about.
That's awesome. Well, been a little bit of an interview with Samarth, and maybe at some point we'll do the opposite and we'll talk about why I'm here and all that at some other point. But, just take away from this, we've talked about the scholastic side of things, and the intellectual side of things, and a little bit of history. And the way I take away from this is everybody's life is going to look a little bit different, but as you can see, you can make your life something better, you know, with taking these little moments in your life, and don't throw them away. You know, don't throw those moments away. Use them, you know, use them as far as you can, and listen to people who have succeeded. Listen to people who have succeeded.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching the HV show. Guys, have fun.